Craig, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. Welcome, and thank you so much for coming to speak and share your wisdom.
Well, thanks. Like everybody says, it's an honor, but it really is an honor because we uh, we only have so many moments in our life that we won't get back, and so taking time to do this really is an honor.
Well, I think most people in the audience may not know who you are. Can you share a few things about yourself, who you are, your background, so people have a better idea of?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And I was, this is often the question at the beginning, and I'm willing to answer it, but I'm aware of a hesitation in me, and I realized that probably for most listeners, they're not they didn't come to find out about me, right? They came to find about out what could I or we deliver to them. But I think what introducing myself will do maybe is spark some interest, but also maybe give some credibility. So it's like, well, why should I listen to this guy? So, in a nutshell, um, on the professional level, I've been a psychologist since my mid to late 20s. Um, and through a personal awakening I had at age 28, which we may likely talk about and what the results of that were, that synchronistically led me to the emergence of a new understanding in the field of psychology that's gone all over the world now. Um, and but it's not in the mainstream yet. It's called the three principles. And part of why it's a breakthrough is it just dramatically simplifies our understanding of how the mind works. And simply by looking at that and honestly, open mindedly reflecting on that information, if it's true, which it is, not because I say so, but because it becomes evident, it just reminds us of what we already knew deep inside. And so, in a sense, starts waking us up. And the more we're awake, we start to feel calm and go back into innate health that we have. And of course, then that means whatever mental illnesses, stress, depression, and or addictions start to fall away because we're finding inside ourselves what we were looking for on the outside. So um, I had this awakening at age 28 through both a conscious search, well, mostly a conscious search for something you could call it ultimate meaning in life. And maybe I thought of it that way at the time, but it was really more just an inner thirst, an inner need that I was just hyper aware that as good as my life on the outside was most of the time, I couldn't find inner peace or inner satisfaction. And that thirst just drove me to a point where I found it inside of myself with the help of profound insights, and then the help of that helped me kind of learn how to go inside, so to speak. So maybe we can talk about that too. So then a little bit more on my history. So then becoming a part of the first maybe group of say 25 psychologists who became aware of this new understanding in the field and became a pioneer in it. I got published in a couple professional journals applying that to leadership and high performance. And then I had a synchronistic connection with a leader, a founder of a breakthrough neuroscience, brain science program. So I was able to get involved with that and integrate that knowledge and expertise into my personal and professional um, skill set, so to speak, knowledge set. And then I got to the point last year, a little or a year and a half ago, of I've got to finally start writing these books I've always wanted to write, and that my clients have always pushed me to write. So I wrote a book. You can see, if those with video can see it in the background there, it's called Reality Shattering Insights Begin Life's Journey. And the other line on the cover is explore the human capability to completely transform in an instant. And I'm not just able to speak about that from a professional experience and education and training background, but from my own personal experience, which got me interested in that in the first place. So I wrote that book. It's the first in a 4 book series that maybe we'll talk a little bit about. Um, and I guess the last thing I'll say is in this intro is then that book in that reality shattering insights book, I share 14 reality shattering insights, insights that people have reflected on, and their lives have gone anywhere from, oh, that's good to remember, and their lives got better because of the insight, all the way to completely uh, transforming their whole experience of life, which, and I talk about that and give specific examples in the book too. So the potential is inspiring. And I was telling you before we recorded how I thought more about the title of your podcast and how I was getting inspired thinking about inspire and impact. How I think every human being, we're looking for that whether we know it or not. We're born as little babies. It's an inspiring experience, whether we remember it or not. It's like, oh my God, I'm alive. And we didn't even have words in our head to be able to say I'm alive, but it was like, whoa, I'm alive. And then we can't help that has impact on us. And then we in turn want to have impact in our lives. And it comes out of insight into that reality, not just intellectual insight, but actual experiential insight into what's before our inspiration. So hopefully this today will open up some of that for your listeners and your viewers.
Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. May I ask, like, what is inspiring you to now want to share like this your knowledge and wisdom to like the world now?
Just the love of it. It changed my life so much. And I was a positive kind of inspired kind of a guy before I had this dramatic change at age 28, where I sometimes, or I often describe it as my world and my mind and myself turned inside out. And that was so fulfilling. It still is, because you don't go back. When you have that kind of an insight, you can forget it and then come back to it and reawaken and learn to integrate it more in your life, but you never forget it. You've gone over a threshold. And the nature of it is just you just reconnect with the innate love of existence and consciousness and being alive. And then, of course, that's connected to everyone and everything. So it might sound a little hokey, but in a way, I tapped into the essential heart of humanity in me for me. And then I open my eyes and there's the rest of humanity. And I can't help but love and want to serve and help that humanity, especially for sure on the levels of getting rid of hunger and war and all that stuff, but especially on the level of connecting to this inside that I had connected to, and it was just obvious. This is what everybody is and is made for, and deep down they know it, and they're looking for it, and they're at various degrees of finding it. So if I can help, now that I've come this far, I definitely want to help. So of course I'd like people to buy my book and make money to be able to fund this effort. And if that means I get well known, which I suspect it will, but I don't know, time will tell, I'll take that, but that's not why I'm doing it. It's literally for the love of it. And it's just very fulfilling. So that's also why I'm so grateful and honored that you'd invite me on. And because you don't just invite anyone on, right? You screen people
Yeah,
and,
on screen people.
and you feel I may have some benefit and advantage for your listeners.
Well, Craig, you talked about like this three principles, but I think some people in the audience may not know what it is. Can you maybe explain? I mean, is it like a modality like hypnosis and NLP? Is it like a philosophy like stoicism or something like that? Can you maybe share with
Yeah,
us a little
no,
bit
it
more?
isn't.
What is it?
Right. It isn't. All those things well, some people are just learning it may think of it that way. And even if they're practicing it professionally, because they're a counselor or a life coach or something, um, they may be at a level of thinking of it that way and applying it that way, but it's really not. The three principles, and I'll describe them in a moment, but just as a setting a context before I do that, the three principles are a way to describe the living power of life itself. which of course can never be done fully in words, because life creates the ability to talk about things in words. So it's before the words and it's even before the concepts, but even a little glimpse into it can really change things. So the three principles are what we use as human beings, and you'll see this when I get into them specifically in a moment, who create paradigms. So it's not just another paradigm. It's it's accessing that intelligence through which human beings do and can create paradigms. And because that intelligence has no limit to it, there are unlimited, better and better, clearer and clearer, more wonderful, more powerful paradigms that will manifest as we evolve as human beings and wake up to this. So, on the other hand, just to be honest, like I said, you can't really put that into, I just tried to put it into words, and I did, and it may be very helpful to some people, but the person that this first was talked about in my lifetime, and I knew him personally, was a man named Sidney Banks. And he was not a psychologist. He was a middle-aged welder who was not very religiously minded or spiritually minded, but he had a profound insight that completely changed his life. And I give him as the primary example in my book. And once he started sharing what he understood now that he had awakened spontaneously, um, some psychologists heard him and went, "Oh my God, this is the future of psychology. He's speaking way beyond the current paradigm." And I happened to be one of those first like 25-ish. And so and I resonated because I had already had my awakening. And it was like, whoa, he's on to so much of it. The one thing he wasn't able to go as far as I could talk about is he awakened spontaneously after hearing someone speak some truth to him. And I can even tell you about that in a moment too. But it was a particular little something that a friend of his said to him, and he heard it completely deeply instead of just on the surface. And he began to reflect on it, and his whole life changed. Um, so I'm trying to remember where I was going with that part of it. Spontaneously. He awoke just hearing some truth. Well, I awoke hearing truth and with the help of um, a way to actually facilitate it, other than just talking about it and reminding people and seeing what kind of insight and expanded perspective gets sparked in that, which I'll bet a lot of your listeners will experience through today's talk with you. Um, that's natural and kind of organically awakening, but there's a way that we can actually turn our consciousness around and go inside and go back to where it's coming from. Consciousness of consciousness. My third book, this is why I wrote 4 books. The first book is just to put the thought out there. Hey, are you open in your mind and ready to, I guess I don't say it this way in the book, but kind of believe in miracles. Believe that there could be something that you could tap into that would awaken you in a way that you kind of want and kind of wish for, maybe not so consciously, but if it could be possible, yes, I'd be interested. So I'm putting that out. Second book, I go in depth into these 3 principles and Sid Banks' story. So I lay that all out for those who become interested. The third book goes into this. There's a way to actually turn your consciousness around beyond just deep, sincere reflection and listening, which is necessary. That's necessary for what the third book's about. And then my fourth book is about kind of, if you've been with me here now through these 3 books and what they offer, and you've used those resources, then where do we go from here? And the basic concept or vision, maybe is a better way to say it there, is if you've gone sufficiently into this, and it doesn't take, for some, it'll take the slightest comment, like with Sid Banks, and for others, it'll take a process of time, but they'll notice it won't feel arduous. They'll notice it's getting better and better and better as they go. It gets so interesting and it feels so good. Then it's like, well, what do we do as individuals, and what can we do collectively? Bring this out to humanity, and I kind of frame it as like create a heaven on earth through a global shift in consciousness. Bring the best of this to everyone, because you really do, and this might sound hokey to some people, but you wake up to, like, you are me. We're the same life. We have the same heart. We all use it differently in our minds, and therefore have our own unique worlds and experiences. Um, but at the heart, we're the same. So how can I not love you when the more I'm awake to that, how can I not love my life and not love people? Do I like everybody? No. Do I disagree with or agree with everybody? No. Do I like everybody's politics or whatever it is? No. I know what I like and I know who I am. But that doesn't mean I can't love you. It's so freeing.
So, I mean, again, I'm not, I don't know much about the three principles. You're just
Oh,
starting
yes.
to talk
Great.
about it now, but it comes across to me from what you said so far. It's almost similar to some type of like religious or spiritual teaching where like people talk about they have this spiritual awakening. Like I met some people that they said they've done some type of like yoga and they had this Kundalini uh experience or they felt awakening, like had a spiritual awakening. Is that like what you're referring to? Or is this something
Yes,
different?
absolutely. I talk about that in my first book and try to show people that there are really two sides to life coexisting. And one is the visible side, the formed side, time, space, and matter. But the other is the invisible, formless. And no wonder we miss it, because you can't see it, right? And you can't touch it, you can't taste it in a sense, but we can perceive it, we can feel it with an inner feeling, and we can know it. So my working definition of spiritual, which I've shared for 40 years now, and I've never had anyone disagree, even hardcore atheists, is that spiritual is the dimension of human life that's real, that's formless. And that can sound like, ooh, mystical or something. And it is, in a way, it is mystical. But I think I've got a For example, here's a really good practical example I think that has worked for most of the people I've shared it with. So I could ask you, well, or you or anybody, you have a mind? And everybody would say yes. And I'd say, well, how do you know? It's because, well, if I think about it, yeah, I have a mind, and I use it. I use it purposely, thinking, using, and sometimes I'm just using it, and I'm not consciously using it. I'm just using it. I'm living with it, and so I know it's there, and I know actually when we think about it, it's super powerful. So if I make a decision, I'm gonna do that career instead of that. My whole life goes in a direction correlated with being a truck driver instead of a school teacher or whatever it's like, or I'm going to marry that person instead of that person. Totally different experience that will come out of that. So when we reflect on it, it's like, oh my God, I always knew thought was powerful, but it really is powerful. And then, so, uh, lost my train of thought there. Um, Remind me of what you were asking me.
We're talking about like the difference
Oh,
between like
spiritual.
spiritual, yeah.
Yes, spiritual. So here's an example: the human mind. So you'd admit you have a human mind. You admit you think. You admit it's very powerful. So what is the shape of your mind, or what is the shape of your ability to think? Well, there's no shape. It's just a power that's there. It's real. It exists. It's a principle, a power, a law. It's constantly there. And then one of the principles is we get to choose to use it. In fact, we are always choosing whether we know it or not, because we're always using it. Something in us needs to use our mind in every moment to at least survive in our bodies and all the rest of it and fulfill the purpose of existence. Why are we here beyond our bodies? So So becoming aware, getting a feeling for this is critical, not just an idea. That's okay, an intellectual idea, but more than that, getting a feeling for what's behind my eyes that looks through my eyes. What's behind my mind through which I create the thinking that I then live in and experience. Oh, who is that? Well, it must be me. It must be me, but on a level I'm not used to being in touch with. So the more we can reflect on this and get in touch with who we really are on the inside, we feel like we're coming home. It resonates. We kind of relax into it and go, oh yeah, and oh yeah, it's obvious that here's one of the reality shattering insights, 14 of them that I share in the book, and that's uh, we're not feeling our circumstances. It looks like we're feeling our circumstances. I'm in rush hour traffic and I'm stressed because there's rush hour traffic. But then upon reflection, we realize the stress is not coming from the traffic. It's coming from my mind and how I'm looking at it and using my mind. And when I see that, I'll automatically go, oh, and just start to relinquish that stress creating thinking because innately we have health and wisdom that says we're not here to live it, create stress and live in it. We're here to live in peace and that good, healthy feeling of well being inside. So the system is automatically self correcting and self healing when we kind of stop and reflect and go back and see, oh, see something that was there all along, but we just hadn't seen it, or we remember something we knew, but we didn't know we knew it. It's kind of so when I work with clients, and in the book, I assume this too, everybody knows what I'm talking about. They just may not know that they know. So I'm not some big expert enlightening people and, believe what I say. It's more like, hey, this is what I've discovered. Can you relate to it? What do you think? Does it make sense? And what happens with most people that I work with, and I'm seeing it with you, even how the quality of your listening, Daniel, and how you're listening and tuning in and responding, is people who are open-minded and interested, looking for the insight that leads to inspiration, that leads to impact. They'll start to get a sense of it, and it'll create an interesting kind of healthy confusion because it's like, well, yeah, it resonates, but this isn't the normal way to this isn't normal. And you know what? All that this isn't normal is oh, I got conditioned to think a certain way. So I've been feeling that, thinking it was reality, not realizing it was just my thinking. And now that's being reorganized because I'm hearing something more true and deep. And my brain literally is rewiring now that I'm integrating this new knowledge, but it's not fully integrated. It's not fully rewired. So there's this kind of interesting kind of mind fuzziness or confusion, but it's okay. And our interest will take us further. So maybe I should talk about the three principles themselves. Should I do that? Okay.
Yeah, please do.
So first of all, I guess two things to talk about. What is principle? And then the three principles. The principle is truth, or capital L, law of reality, or the ultimate power of the existence of existence. Okay, so I'm talking on that level, but all those things are don't have a shape. What's the shape of the power of existence? No, existence creates shapes that can have power. That rock falling there, that sun blazing over there, this human being thinking over here. So there's this principle is constant, it's reliable. The more we awaken to its presence, which is our own presence, we relax into it because it's like, oh, we wake up out of our innocent, fearful dream of life, our anxiety about living. and we start to realize life is on our side. My second book is called Your Universal Powers, and it'll be these three principles, colon, life backs you up. And the more you actually, you don't just embrace that as a kind of a cool philosophy, but you actually begin to discover it and feel it and live it. It's, well, it's life changing. It's like, oh my gosh, life is on my side and I couldn't see it. And now I understand why all those things I thought was life being against me actually were for me. So it all starts to turn around. So these three principles are mind, consciousness, and thought, and they're actually a triunity. They're not three separate principles. They're all part of the same singular principle of existence itself, the form, the existence, and then the form that we experience is secondary to that. What do I mean? Well, mind, universal mind, life mind is life intelligence, life power, the power of existence itself. Okay. This is these, I could talk about this for all day for a week. And you could get more and more out of it. But for the purposes of this podcast, I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. And I'm asking your viewers and listeners right now, as you listen to this, don't try to fit your wrap your mind around this, because this is before your mind. This is what's there when your mind quiets down and something's still there and you're alive and you're at peace and you're clear. And, oh, wow, it's where you don't have to think, but like thinking happens anyway, but it's flow state thinking. So listen for the feeling of that, the ring of truth in what I'm saying. Don't try to wrap your head around it. And people understandably listen for, what am I supposed to do with this? Don't listen for, what am I supposed to do? If there's a do, it's just listen to it. Just listen, see if it resonates, and then let that kind of cook inside of you. And when it's ready, it'll percolate up and start to give you insights. Okay. So there's this universal mind, this intelligence of life itself. Well, one of the huge innate powers of that is universal consciousness, which means consciousness is the power that brings experience to life, makes experience be known. So right now, we're individually pointing our consciousness towards this topic and seeing each other on the screen and having this conversation. So that's what we're experiencing. I'm not experiencing sitting in the back seat of my car. And that pops up as a random example, right? But if I were actually sitting in the back seat of my car, my consciousness would be there. I'd be experiencing that. And I probably would not be thinking about this podcast. So we've got this power that takes where we're putting our attention and our thinking, and it brings it absolutely to life. So we're feeling it. And this is why the great, wise people of old talk about how the world is an illusion. And it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it's not what it appears to be. It appears to be a separate, solid reality out there imposing itself on us and making us feel things. And we're a victim in essence. And what you realize, there is no separate power. It's just a reflection of what I'm generating on the inside that I wasn't aware of until I started to become aware of it. And now it turns around. I'm no longer the victim. I'm actually the creator of my experience and of my reality. That the power of existence itself gave us each as individuals that same power to make of our lives whatever we choose. And not even at the beginning, maybe aware that we're doing the choice, but we are. So mind is with consciousness that creates experience. And as individuals, wherever we put that, that becomes our experience. The third principle, which is also co-equal with the other two, is the principle of universal thought, which is free will and the power of using that free will to create. So this unlimited creative intelligence in us that is always there, and we just forget. We forget. We go into forgetful until we finally wake up enough. Like I don't forget how to walk anymore. I'm awake enough to that, right? That can come in this as well. But we forget, so we run into an experience in the world that we feel frustrated or depressed or whatever it is, and then we feel stuck in it. And the only reason we feel stuck in it is we forgot or don't realize deeply enough, um, oh, I've got this unlimited creative intelligence that can do anything with this. It can turn a negative into, a lemon into lemonade, or it can be an alchemist. It can take whatever's there and actually turn it into gold, metaphorically, for myself. I can make something out of this. This isn't a curse, it's actually a gift challenging me, or I'm challenging myself with it to uncover more of this power in me to overcome the world at any time and just make it the best possible adventurous experience there is. So on a kind of down on a practical level of like therapy and work with addictions, people, when they really start to see and get a feeling for, well, here's an example. I've had so many of my clients, let's say they were drinkers or smokers, and some of them were actually alcoholics, but some of them weren't. They just were drinkers. And so many of them at some point will say to me, Craig, I've noticed I'm losing my interest in alcohol. And maybe we never talked about alcohol. And to me, I would not say, well, alcohol's bad. No, it is what it is, and it can do what it can do at the level, like, okay, be wise in your use of it. But and on the smoking part, I've had people say to me literally, Craig, I just realized I don't smoke anymore. They say, I didn't quit, but the first woman who said this to me came out of a meeting that we were having at our clinic. This is 40 years ago or more. And she saw an ashtray on the waiting room table, which we used to have on the waiting room tables, back then. And she realized, being a smoker, she looked at it and she went, oh my God, I haven't smoked for at least a month, I think it was. So she says to me, Craig, I just realized I don't smoke anymore. I didn't quit. And so then that was a group session. So in our next individual session, we talked about it. And what became clear, and this is true for any, whether it's an alcohol or smoking or gambling or porn or whatever the addiction is, why would we engage that? Because we don't feel good and we want to feel good. We feel stressed, we want to feel peace. However you want to put that. So as a person begins to be introduced to these three principles on many levels, and kind of tailored to their particular life, and it starts to get through, they're going to go, oh, and they're going to notice as they listen, they start to relax and feel better. And then they not only relax and feel better like a band-aid. Oh, when I come into my sessions, I feel so good, but then I go out to the real world, I'm full of stress. Pretty soon they go, no, it's sticking. And I talk about how the more we tune into that, it sticks because we're made for it. You can't unsee what you've seen. We can kind of forget it, but then we keep coming back to it more and more just organically. So what was happening with these people was they were just naturally feeling better and better, just in touch with who they really were, deeper inside of them, their innately healthy state, and going through life that way. Well, what happens then? It doesn't occur to them to use what they were addicted to make them feel better. So their habits and addictions literally start to drop away, sometimes all at once, big time, usually little by little. And it makes sense that at first you might not even notice it because you're going on about your nice life. You're not going about life going, am I still smoking? Am I still smoking? No, and then there comes that point where she saw that ashtray and she went, oh my God, I left that behind in a sense. And I didn't choose to leave consciously to leave that behind. But what I was choosing was to listen and get more and more into the truth of what I'm uh, experiencing now. And people were living in that feeling not because they wrapped their head around it, but because they relaxed their head, which allowed more realization of, oh, I just know that through a feeling, which at its very core you could call self-knowledge. I know who I am, and I'm enough, and I can live in this life. I'm a part of this life. I'm not separate from it. And this life, in fact, it's breathing me. It's on my side. It's breathing me. It's giving me eyes that can see. And I just thought for, well, no, I have eyes and I can see, and it's me and my power. No, yes, but no, everything's a gift. So maybe you get so truly tapping into what the three principles are is, if, as you and your listeners have listened to what I've just shared, if you can get a feeling for what's behind my words, what's, is there something true that's there that is formless but real, that you kind of tune into, then cool. And if not, that's okay. That's okay. Um, it's not for you at this time. Honestly, I see it kind of like this. Like some people are in like whatever grade it is, second grade learning arithmetic. And I start talking algebra to them and they don't get it, or it doesn't, it's like, it's honestly okay. It's not like, well, you're wrong and stupid, and I'm so enlightened up here with algebra. It's like, oh, no, be where you're at, live your life, experience what you need to experience. And when you're ready, when you've learned enough arithmetic, then you'll be ready for what's next. And then, like the saying says, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Life is on your side. So we will bring teachers and or the teaching through books or how, whatever form, it'll bring it to you now. And now you'll be able to see it. Maybe it was there before, but you couldn't see it because it just looked, the algebra looked like gibberish to you, but you got numbers, right? So, and there's no end to this mathematics, so to speak. It's kind of exciting. So I don't know, any questions there? Does that, what I said about the principles, did it make some sense? Because I know to some people it can sound crazy, but to others it can be like, oh my God, I love this. I want to learn more.
Yeah, it's definitely sparking tremendous amount of curiosity because I've been in the self-help, self-development world for over 20 years now. And almost everybody else that I've talked to about when somebody has an issue, like you mentioned, addiction to smoking, everybody else says they have to like go into like the why, like why they, what's causing that addiction to smoking. And they have to like either go back in the past or change their beliefs about the smoking, or saying, even people said there's like a biochemical connection and we need to stop the biochemistry happening like in their mind, body. And they're saying something totally different than anybody else has ever told me. That you're saying that if people come to a new understanding of these important core life principles, then these issues like such as addictions will just melt away without even specifically working on that, which nobody else has ever told me about that. Everybody else has told me you need to be really specific and go into that, the details, like, maybe something in your past, like you saw your mom smoking, or you said maybe like your mind created association that like every time you go stressed, you have to smoke, or maybe it's like, people say it's a genetic problem that like, like you have this brain chemical imbalance and need to take a pill to heal that brain chemical imbalance to stop this addiction. And you're saying you're throwing all that out the window. You're saying just study these life principles. I mean, that sounds more than profound. It's almost like mind boggling. I'm trying to like wrap my head. How's that even possible? You're saying it's like,
Sounds
you
like
don't
your
even have to like
reality is
work on
getting
these like
shattered.
issues.
Sounds like your reality is getting shattered, which is perfect. Because if we have a reality and a self that can be shattered, I talk about this in the book, then it needs to be because it's not real. If we could make it up in our head, it didn't exist. Well, who and what made it up in our head? That's who we are. We're not who we think and feel we are. We're the one making it up. That is so profound. So, not just, okay, now I'll believe that. That's still in your head. But you're right, going back before that and and see it's the innocence of the old paradigm, and you just put it in a nutshell, like you got to focus on the problem and figure it out and go into the past and work on it. When you understand very simple, when our field, I'm a psychologist, when our field, at least if not humanity itself, sees, well, wait a minute, the simple truth, where we put our attention is what we experience and bring to life and reinforce. Well, I've got an addiction. Okay, let's really focus on that problem and really give it way more detailed attention in order to solve. It makes perfect sense from a human intellectual point of view. It's a problem, analyze it, figure out the solution, and then work on it. The grain of truth in that is, yes, we need to understand what's really going on here with an addiction. But we also need to recognize we're trying to go about it only on the rational level, and the spiritual is not, it's not irrational. It sounds irrational to some people who don't understand. It's just non-rational. It's beyond the rational, but it's true. So what's really going on here? And oh, let me put my attention towards insight instead of rational problem solving. Insight means I listen because I desire it. I feel it in my heart. I want to be free from this addiction. We listen for a possibility that we, in a sense, know I don't see the answer. Otherwise, I'd be living it, right? So I'm listening for a possibility that I sincerely want, but I admit I don't know it yet. But it's kind of like I'm having faith in, well, somehow in this unknown, invisible unknown, there's a potential answer that I can get. And I've tried deliberately to create it through my rational mind. But now, oh, Craig's reminding me, well, there's that, and it has great value for the right things. But there's this other form of intelligence called insight. Oh, well, let me try that since I'm kind of running this other one ragged. Let me try insight. But what do you do to get insight? You don't grind away in your head, you relax. When do we get our insights? We're driving the car, we're in the shower, we're on vacation. Our mind is clear and relaxed, and then out of the blue, an insight comes. So, what can we do to put our mind in those conditions and then engineer it for what we want? What do you mean, Craig, engineer? Well, deep down, we're all engineering it for the best life we think we can have, whether we're trying for that, But you meet with me, say, as a counselor, and go, I want to get free from this addiction. Okay, sure. And then let's, I put it this way often. We've clarified this is your issue. You've struggled. Okay, now let's just suspend that for a moment. Let's step back and let me share these principles with you. Oh, so now you're not putting your intention into your problem and keeping it alive. My problem. Then you'll experience it, right? But you're not denying it. You're just setting it there. And let's look over here into these principles. And as you do, it points you back inside. More of that innate wisdom and power starts to come out, and health starts to come out. And like I said with those other examples, without trying, it's not just my smoking or my drinking or whatever. It's my whole life starts to just, metaphorically, it's like the more I find the light, I learn how to get out of the way and let that light shine into not only inside where I can feel it, outside into my life. So I notice I'm less interested in being with the people who complain all the time, and I'm more interested in being with these people. I'm less interested in eating that kind of junk food all the time, and I'm more interested in eating this healthy stuff. Or I have a son who had his own awakening, um, and about within 6 months of what was actually in the process of coming to it, he calls me and goes, "Well, apparently I'm a runner." Like he just woke up one day and went, "God, I feel like running." And he was what, in his 30s, early 30s, I think. And so he went out and he just started running every day and he loved it. And he didn't need to lose weight, but he lost some weight. And he calls me and he goes, "I've been running for what, 3 weeks or whatever it was, and I'm feeling great." And it's just like so what he needed, his interests shifted as he got more in touch with that innate health inside of him. So you don't have to, I mean, I'm not saying it's a waste of time to figure out into rationally what are the healthy things I'd like to do in my life, and oh, I should do this instead of that. Okay, but don't stop there. Find then the best that maybe that is like, well, now I have to go to the gym, but it is good for me, and then I'm glad once I've gone. Okay, that's better than not. But to me, it's like, what if we could live in that innate inspiration that you're consciously or not bringing to your listeners? It's like, God, I get to live another day. I get to go to the gym and I get to choose not to if it's really like, no, I need a break. And I get to not have guilt about that. It's my choice. I just need to remember I have the power of the principle of thought and that I have access to this unending creative intelligence to either solve problems in my life, overcome obstacles, or on the other end of the spectrum, make new discoveries, create new things, evolve into new areas, and make new success where I maybe didn't even imagine I could. I was just interviewed on a radio station last week, and it was just a short 20-minute interview. And at the end, the woman, she just goes, "This is such a positive, uh, hopeful philosophy." I don't know what she called it. This is so hopeful. And I reflected for a moment and went, "Well, yeah, it is, isn't it?" It's not like I'm not intentionally going, be positive, but it is. And it's attractive in that way. So maybe a question might be like, well, practically, how is this taught or facilitated with people? And it's basically getting it into their consciousness in a way, and it's especially useful if it's not just, oh, I'll read a little on this and maybe in 6 months I'll pick up another book. If that's your interest, that's fine. But if you really want to get the most out of it, I'd say kind of immerse yourself in it at the beginning. And there's a couple ways. One is you meet with someone like me who's already grounded in this and has been facilitating it. Uh, Sometimes we say teaching it. Like I said earlier, I still say teaching it, but it's like it's not quite right because you already know it, but you may not know it. Just like I was in that position where it was like every time I'd get new insight and reminders, it'd be like, "Oh, I know that. Well, makes sense. Oh, I know that." Like I didn't know that I knew. Um, so you meet with someone, you go online and find recorded talks or teachings. You find books like this is why I wrote this book. I really want to get this possibility out there to people who have a genuine interest. All we have to do is follow that interest, and it will open up more and more. That's what happened. That's what led me to my awakening, and I love to turn around and share that. And not everybody's ready, willing, or able to hear that right away, but some are. And nice to meet you. um, So books, recorded material, there's there are teachers or facilitators of this all around the world at various levels of competence. Um, Live events, retreats. Sid Banks passed away a number of years ago. Um, but there are some really, really good teachers of this. Um, but if I just say, I guess it's a little self-serving or a lot. Start with my book. Just start there, and then you'll probably want to read my second book, which is not published yet. I'm intending to finish that in the next couple months. And that will go into depth into the three principles, Sid Banks' story, and then the practical level of like, how can I take advantage of this understanding beyond your book, right? And I give some resources and insights there.
Can I ask you? I mean, as of late, I don't know, what last 10, 20 years, the self-help and self-development industry has grown tremendously. There's been so many more people interested in how to be a better version of themselves or how to heal themselves. And there's been countless, probably thousands of books like related to self-help coming out. And it seems like so many people now either call themselves a coach, some type of coach, or they want to be a coach. A lot of people are coaching each other. And there's so many like retreats and wherever I look, there's something going on. But yet it seems like there's so many problems happening in our society despite all this information, all this coaching. In your opinion, what do you think is missing in like the self-help, self-development like world?
This, this. And I thought you were going to go to this question, and maybe it's next or it was embedded in that. And it was like, well, how do we tell? How do we choose? There's so many options on so many levels, and it's as simple and as challenging, depending on how you look at it, but it's as simple as follow your heart. Listen for what doesn't just make rational sense. Yeah, we're given this gift of the rational mind for a reason, but don't worship that as the highest form of intelligence. It's very powerful, but it's not the highest. And listen deeper from your heart, your soul, people from inside, people say it different ways, to what speaks to something inside that just feels right, even if it's just a little. Some people may listen to this podcast and go, oh, I think I'll check that out. I'll bet as this gets out there, there'll be some people who will be like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And they'll just be rabid about learning more, really thirsty. I had a client that I started with maybe 3 months ago, maybe four. Horrible situation where a couple of years ago, he found his wife dead from alcoholism. And then 2 years later, just before we met, he found his adult son dead from drug addiction. He walked in and found them. And it was like, and by the end of the first session, it tickles me. He's looking at me. He goes, I can't believe it, but I'm feeling better. And he said, I think I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. So some of your listeners will be like, I don't think I was looking for the three principles, but wow, maybe, or there's something to this, or maybe, and whatever that sincere inkling from a feeling level and an open-mindedness. I'm interested with an open mind, not even if you go at it from a somewhat closed, rational mind of well, this has got to be a bunch of new age hooey, and I'm going to prove it's wrong. If you still feel an attraction, go check it out and it'll start to answer stuff, right? It'll free you from that. So just follow your heart as you go. And that's what I did. And then it got more and more narrow, not in the sense of restricted and you can't go here, but just like here it is. Here the light is shining brighter here, here, here. And then it was finally inside and like able to take that power of unlimited power of consciousness, and you mean there's a mirror that can just go and turn it back inside? Yes. And then and only you can know what that experience is for you. But who is it? What is it that you'll experience? I've had clients say, well, I don't want to know who I am. It's going to be horrible. Well, that's a concept. They've been feeling their horrible thought about themselves. What if there's a you deep down that has never been horrible, has never been what? Guilty, has always been in love with life, but it just got buried because we got born in these human bodies and this human mind, and we had to go out there and take in this amazing experience of life that impacted us and find a way to extract from it the best we could so we could emerge more of who and what we really were originally coming into this life, but even expanded more now. And of course, you want to live that expansion, and part of that is sharing it with others who want it. And not just the word out, which is kind of my level of it, but work with people with addictions. Bring that love and care into this program that helps people, into this government, into this business. Did I mention at the beginning, I've been published in professional journals applying this to leadership and high performance. And I've worked with a lot of business owners and executives. And I don't tell them how to run their business. I teach them this, and they are able to live in a state of presence and wisdom and confidence that they never were before. And then, of course, they bring that into their work and it has a positive impact. The other big exciting part of the title of your podcast.
Yeah, you definitely inspired me very much through this conversation. I just want to have a better understanding, though. Are you saying that if people understand these three principles, they don't need to read these other like self-help books, like all this other stuff that's out there? Or
Mostly yes, but I'll say it this way. Two things. The more they understand these principles, not just intellectually, but actually, like I don't just understand that's a bicycle and you pedal and those are the wheels and that's what you do. I actually get on the bicycle and I feel what it's like to pedal and balance, and now I know how to ride a bike. So understand in that way, yes, you don't need anything else. Now I'm gonna talk out of both sides of my mouth here. You don't need anything else other than that. And then you just live in that. But living in that sometimes says, okay, go read this book and get something out of it. Go be with this person and get to know them. Go do this job, right? So it doesn't say, it's not exclusive. It doesn't exclude all that. It just transcends it and then includes it when and where it fits wisely in how you're evolving. So I still think most of the people who are out there writing self-help books and doing all that kind of stuff and the coaching and all that, at their heart, they're beautiful people doing the best they know, trying to share the best they have, and God bless them. But if you follow your heart, it's like, I've read that kind of self-help stuff. I kind of know how far it goes, and it just doesn't go far enough for me anymore. And you don't have to be negative. You can just, well, that's second grade. And that doesn't even, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way either. I mean it in a practical way. That's second grade. Oh yeah, I've been there. Great. But I need something beyond second grade. And we often think using the metaphor of the grades of education, like, oh, this grade is it, this is it. But then it's like, oh no, there's more to learn. And then we start to realize, oh, there's always grade levels up. In the three principles, we often talk about that as levels of consciousness or levels of understanding, and that Sid Banks pointed out, and it's evident once you understand that there's infinite levels, which is so exciting. It's like we never have to kind of come to the end of discovery and insight and intelligence and love of life and love and creativity and joy and novelty. We never have to come to the end of that. And the more we live in that, someone might say, I feel like I'm living in a heaven on earth state of mind. Or literally for them, I'm living in heaven on earth because they're feeling, they're thinking in their physical worlds as they live. I'm not there. I'm on my way way more than I ever dreamed. So I'm still a student, and I think we'll always be students when we understand this, because we always want to stay open to more and more and more and receive more of that.
Well, Craig, we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast. I wish we had more time, but maybe we'll have you come back on for another time. Is there any like last words you'd like to share with the audience before we end?
Sure. Whoever you are, it's interesting. I had this really nice feeling come up in me as you asked me that, imagining like there are people, there are souls out there that are watching, that are listening, that are sincere and are open and uh, got a little, and maybe even a little hope, or actually really have gotten inspired. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Everything in me says do what you feels right, to just follow that thirst. You don't know how long you'll be alive, right? That was one of my big awarenesses before my awakening. It was like I absolutely knew that what I was looking for was possible because I had enough evidence of it, but I didn't like, kind of like sin. I didn't know, would it happen in this lifetime? Would it be in, are there other lifetimes? I wasn't necessarily a believer in reincarnation. I'm not a disbeliever either, but and then I had this opportunity in front of me, like, well, you can be taught how to do that. And it's like, what? So follow your heart, be honest with yourself, with what comes back, what it looks like, what it feels, what it teaches you. Will it be willing to be humble? Um, and and I'd be honored if you'd start with my book, Reality Shattering Insights. Just put my name or the book into Amazon and it'll pop right up there.
If somebody had a question, they're interested in working with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Will they see what we've got on the bottom of our screens here? See where it says craigpolfus.com? You could go to
I don't think it'll show up as part
Okay,
of that, but it'll be
okay,
on the YouTube description. People
okay.
who
So
will
my
be in the description.
website, and I've just started into this in the last few months. I don't have a big fancy website, but you can reach me at Craig at craigpolfus.com. Or you can go to my website and see a little bit of the background, but that's www.craigpolfus.com. And just contact me that way. And let's see where we go from there.
Well, Craig, as I said before, we're kind of running out of time for now. We're at the hour mark here, but I wanted to thank you so much for again coming on and sharing your wisdom. I'm excited. I'm definitely getting your book. I'll tell you how much. I can't wait to read
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
You definitely piqued my curiosity. You definitely inspired me through this conversation to want to know more about these three principles, because it seems like it's an underlying understanding of what's happening in life, and not just like a surface level, like you said, like belief or like an affirmation, like say this affirmation every day. It goes much deeper than that. So I'm definitely very interested, and definitely I personally will get your book, and maybe in a future podcast I'll share with people what my insights were about after I read your book. But it sounds extremely interesting. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing with us with everybody. I think that is definitely very important. As you said, that there's a lot of people that really need this, as especially people in the self-help industry. This may be, one of the missing things that they're looking for. I didn't know. But thank you for everything, and definitely congratulations on your book and your future books. And we'll definitely stay tuned of what's next, of what else you're going to put out.
Well, thanks, Daniel, so much. I'd be happy to come back. And if any of your listeners are connected in any way to other podcasts or even broadcast media, I'm really open to it. So thank you so much.